What are some of the most underrated places in the world to be a digital nomad? That's going to be the topic of today's video. So if you're an expat or a high net wealth individual, go over to adamfire.com and check out what we can do for you. Now, on today's video, I'm going to talk about digital nomads. Now, a lot of people mention Bali in Indonesia, also Thailand, some parts of Eastern Europe as being good places for expat digital nomads to live. However, I'm going to talk today about some underrated places to go as a digital nomad. Not necessarily the best places in the world for everyone, but some underrated places. Now, number one, I'm going to talk about Taiwan in East Asia. Now, Taiwan's relatively developed, in fact, really quite developed in some parts of the country. It's got a GDP per capita of close to $30,000, which is about 4 times as much as China's GDP per capita and indeed Thailand's GDP per capita. But what a lot of people don't know is outside of Taipei, Taiwan is pretty cheap. It's got some of the best Wi-Fi connections in the world. It's regularly featured on Internations, the expat group, as being the best place to live as an expat. Well, not the best place to live, but it has the highest satisfaction of any expat group in the world. In other words, when they ask Internations members all around the world, it comes number one consistently, either number one or number two every single year. It's also a place you can learn Chinese. They're Mandarin speakers as well. It's democratic, it's open, you can do what you want there within reason. So I would say Taiwan is a good place to live. However, getting a visa isn't always that easy. So a lot of the digital nomads who live in Taiwan, oftentimes I think maybe they go there, they get a job, or they're married to a Taiwanese. There are probably ways that I'm not familiar with, I'm not sure, but there must be some residency by investment programs for Taiwan. And there's always a way, right? I mean, you can get in maybe on a tourist visa, convert it over if you find a job, or some people do it through being a student first. I know 1 or 2 people who, they just got a student visa and they worked in Taiwan, they paid their taxes in Taiwan, they made everything legitimate, and then they switched over their visa. I'm not an expert on the visa situation in Taiwan, but that is a negative. It's not as easy to actually get in if you're not essentially helped by a local company. Which leads me to South Korea. I think similar to Taiwan, people think it's expensive maybe, which is not the case. Outside of Seoul, it's not that expensive. The internet's very good. But I think similarly to Taiwan, the whole visa situation is pretty difficult. Again, there are residency by investment programs. You can get in many ways, but it's not as easy as some countries out there. The same is true of Japan. I think with Japan, Tokyo would never be the number one city maybe for digital nomads unless you're earning a lot of money. But actually, I have increasingly met some nomads who have chosen to live in some of the cheaper places like Osaka or beyond. Japan's not the best place in the world for being a nomad because English is not great and so on. But if you've lived in Asia for a long time, let's say you've been an expat in China for a time or Vietnam or whatever, and you're just fed up of things not working, and you want something which is efficient, you want something which is clean, you want the Wi-Fi to work, you don't want government restrictions, Wi-Fi restrictions. I would say Taiwan, Korea and Japan, the 3 major locations in East Asia, can be alternatives for digital nomads. A lot of people, they just think about the Thailands of this world, but I think those 3 countries can definitely be mentioned. I think also some places in the Caucasus, like maybe Georgia, can also play a part. Georgia has 0% tax on overseas income. You can get in with an $100,000 investment into real estate. And it's also developing quite fast, or at least it was before COVID. I visited Georgia. So that's another option. Also, some places in Latin America, I think a lot of people think all areas of Latin America are dangerous, but in reality, somewhere like Panama or Mexico or even Colombia, there are parts of the country which are very safe. If you do your research, you can actually find where those places are. If you want to learn a new language, obviously Spanish is a pretty good one to learn. I think they are also good places for nomads to be. How can I help you? In 2 ways. First of all, are you an expat, a high net wealth individual, or just somebody who lives in a part of the world where it's difficult to get access to quality investment solutions. In which case, go onto my website on adamfire.com and find out more. If you don't fit into any of those categories, then in which case there's a range of free material on my website, on this YouTube channel, and indeed on my Quora, where I get over 200 or have received over 231 million views in the last few years. And finally, if you want to actually read my thoughts in more detail, go onto Amazon and find my book on there.